All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. For those of you guys who were waiting for this video earlier, I do apologize. I had a doctor's appointment I totally forgot about, so I wasn't able to make the video earlier today. So I do apologize for that again. Um, but let's go ahead and get started with this lesson. So this lesson's about the Mexican American War. Okay, um, we're gonna be talking about how uh, basically Mexico became a country, and then how they lost their land to the United States. Okay, so we're gonna analyze how the Battle of Alamo happened, or examine the reason for the Mexican American War, and then we're gonna create an argument on whether Mexico would have won if gold was discovered just a little bit earlier. Okay. Now, here is your warm up picture. So, basically, what the warm up question is asking you is who's winning and how do you know? Okay. Now, on your warm up on your paper, it's kind of hard to see the distinction between the colors because, again, it's just black, white, and the various shades of gray. So, it's really hard to see. So, hopefully, you can see the different colors of the uniforms on these guys here. Um, and then again, just tell me how do you know that that one side is winning? Okay. In class, we had about one class got up to 6 reasons, different variations of how they could tell. So there's not just one clear cut answer. Okay. So pause the video, look at the picture, analyze it, write your response. Okay. Because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right. So when Spain controlled Mexico, they treated the Mexican people horribly. I mean, absolutely horrible. They would beat them, they would work them from morning till night, things like that. They weren't even treated like a second class citizen, they were treated below that. Because to them, they were nothing. Even half breeded Mexican and Spaniards were treated as second class citizens. You had to be pure blood Spaniard to be enjoying the fruits of life. Um, so things were pretty horrible for the Mexican people. And the thing is, it wasn't until this guy you see in that picture right there, right in the dead center, that is Father Miguel Hidalgo y Costilla. He was a priest, a Catholic priest. And priests are supposed to be preaching about love, forgiveness, and things like that. But Father Hidalgo just couldn't take it anymore. He saw what the Mexican people were going through, and he basically said, enough's enough. And he rallied people to basically revolt and fight back against the Spanish. So what he did was he went to the bell tower at his church and rang the bell, and that issued the Grito de Dolores, which is the cry of Dolores. Now, in class, someone asked me, "Well, what does that mean? Why the cry of Dolores?" Well, the town where he had his church in was called Dolores. Now it's called Dolores Hidalgo. So they named the town partly after him too. And the church he rang the bell in, it's basically now a museum because the significance of that. And the day that happened was September 16th, 1810. September 16th is Mexico's Independence Day. Okay, it's not the 5th of May. It's not Cinco de Mayo. Okay, that's a totally different thing. Okay, now the Spanish figured, hey, Father Hidalgo, if we capture him, because he's the front runner, he's the leader of this rebellion. If we capture him and kill him, that will kill the revolution. So that's what they did. They captured him, they killed him, and they figured, okay, we chopped the head off the snake, boom, it's all over. The body's gonna die. The people are gonna go back to their normal lives. But that didn't happen. Basically, when they killed him, they made him a martyr, meaning they made him larger than life. And so a lot of the Mexican people saw as like, hey, you know what? He died for what he believed in, and that's for Mexico's independence. We can't let him down. And they kept fighting. And for 11 years, they would continue to fight. And finally, Mexico got its independence on September 27th, 1821. Now, Mexico is a new country. They're just starting off. And the thing is, there were some American people who wanted to come into a territory of Mexico called Texas or Texas. Now, thing is, the Mexican government was kind of like, yeah, sure, you can come, but you got to follow some of these rules, which they issued out in the Federalist Constitution of 1824. Now, they're like, American people were like, okay, well, what is it? And it basically said they had to follow Mexican laws. Obviously, right? You go to another country, you got to follow their laws. You can't be like, I'm an American, I can do what I want. No, you can't. You got to follow their laws. They had to stay on a specific spot of land. They couldn't say like, you know what, I'm going to move from this area to this area. No, no, no. The Mexican government said you got to stay in this area. You got to stay in that area. Okay. Another big one was no slaves, because again, remember the Mexican people knew what it felt like to be beaten and worked to death and things like that. So they said no slavery. Now, this didn't stop the white settlers from bringing their slaves, but they would tell the Mexican government, oh, no, 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 no. They're not slaves. They're servants. Yeah, yeah, this is my servant. Now, that would imply that they're paying them, but we all know, and even everybody and their mama knew at that time, no, these are their slaves. They're just bringing them over. They just, oh, slaves is a bad word. No, 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 no. There are servants. You know, they knew. They had to pay taxes to the Mexican government, and everyone had to be registered. So if someone came across, they had to register with the Mexican government. If you had a kid, you had to tell the Mexican government, yeah, I had a kid this winter. His name is such and such. He was born on this time, you know, because they wanted to keep track of all the American people in Texas. Now, things were hunky dory for a little bit until this guy you see in the picture came up. His name is Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, and he became president of Mexico. Now, the thing is, he was very ambitious. Santa Anna wanted something, and that's more. He wanted more of everything, more power, and things like that. So in 1835, he made himself emperor of Mexico. And on top of that, the lower levels of the government. So basically, when the poor people wanted to talk to, say, hey, you know what, um, our roads are bad. You know what, we need to have a canal coming through here. They need representatives to talk to the government. Basically, he got rid of those representatives. So there was no lower level of the government. It was just basically him and like the government for the nobles, the rich people, stuff like that. Now, the thing is, there were a lot of the Americans, the white settlers who were in Texas, were like, well, we're not going to follow the Pharaoh's constitution. If he's an emperor, we're not going to follow some emperor. So some of them stopped paying taxes. Some of them moved land. Some brought more slaves in. And of course, more people came in without registering. So, yes, some people from Texas crossed the border illegally. Some white settlers crossed the border illegally. Now the Texas Revolution starts happening. Settlers, again, not like in Santa Anna, would fight the Mexican army, little skirmishes here and there. All right. And at this point, Santa Anna makes himself the supreme ruler of, uh, of Mexico. Now, like I said, there's a little fighting here on going on here and there. And then Santa Anna says, you know what? No more. No more Americans coming over. Do you think that really stopped the white settlers from coming over? No. And this is where I told the class, this is where I think it's funny that there were white settlers crossing the Mexican American border to come into Mexico illegally. And then, 100 and, 60 some years later, these guys are talking about building a wall, keeping Mexicans out. And it's like, well, your ancestors came here illegally. So and now you're telling Mexicans no, you can't come. You got to come the right way. You can't come illegal. You can't come illegally. To me, that's funny. That's a funny thing in history. How they say that, but their ancestors back in the day crossed into Mexico illegally. It's just to me, it's hilarious. Now there were some white settlers who were like, what's going to happen? Is Santa Anna going to come all the way from Mexico City uh, to fight us? Yes, yes, he did. And that would happen at the climax of the Battle of the Alamo. It went on from February 23rd to March 6th, 1836. Santa Anna brought about 1,500 soldiers and they surrounded the Alamo. Okay, and they basically just made sure that the Americans were inside there. Now, inside the Alamo, the fort, there were soldiers and citizens. Now, like I said in class, if you watch those old school 1950 movies with John Wayne, it's like, hey, we're gonna show these Mexicans how to do it. We're gonna show them what Americans are all about. It's pure crap. And the thing is, in that movie, they showed like a large majority of them being white people. In reality, guys, there wasn't just white people. There were blacks, there were Native Americans, there were Mexicans, there was women, children. So there was a whole bunch of cluster of people inside. It wasn't just one type of group. Okay. Um, Now, of the famous people in the Alamo, which there were, one of the most popular one of the most famous ones was Davy Crockett. He was a frontiersman, meaning he went out into the woods and scouted land and things like that. He was a very good sharpshooter with a musket gun. Okay. Um, but there was also little legends told about him, because there's like legends of like the reason why Minnesota has so many lakes. They have 1,000 lakes in their state. It's because Paul Bunyan and his ox Blue fought each other and wrestled around, and their footsteps and their, the horns piercing the ground caused all these lakes and things like that. That's not true. But thing is, some stories were made about Davy Crockett, and people truly believed it. Like he could jump the Mississippi River with one bounce, right? Nobody can do that because it's a huge river. Okay, if you don't believe me, Google it. It's huge. Um, that he rode a tornado. You know, he like jumped from on top of a lightning storm or on top of a lightning bolt. I was like, what? But yeah, people believed it back then. All right. And also, he was a congressman. I forgot to mention that in class too. Now, the next guy, Jim Bowie or Bowie, however you want to say his name, uh, he was a fighter. Okay. He was in the army, he was part of the different types of groups of army state militias, things like that. But his most famous fight is he took a butcher knife and hacked this guy's chest and pulled his heart out and things like that. Um, Now that knife, he modified it and it's now known as a Bowie knife. So this is, as you can see right here, is the knife I got from the Alamo. It's also this is a Bowie knife. This is, as you can see, this is my toothpick. This is a big sucker. But that's this knife is named after him because it's the kind of knife he had, and again, it was modified and it was huge. Okay. The next guy is William B. Travis. He was leader inside the fort, and he wrote letters out asking for help, and he gave a very detailed description of what's going on in there, what the people were going through, and that's how we know what happened inside the Alamo. Okay, none of those guys survived. Okay, they were all killed. Now, the people in Texas, when they heard what happened, a rally cry was given. Remember the Alamo! So a lot of people decided to sign up to fight against Santa Anna. The guy that was in charge of leading this army was Sam Houston. Now, Sam Houston's a veteran fighter. He was a congressman as well. And thing is, he's no dummy. He knows he can't go head to head, toe to toe with Santa Anna. So what he's doing is he takes his men and they start going riding away. You know, Santana's like, oh, they're scared of us. Let's get him. So they start chasing him. Houston knows again, face to face, no. But if they could do one of two things, then they got him. One of them is if Santa Anna splits up his army. Okay. The other thing is if there's a terrain or if there's a perfect area where they can ambush them, then yeah. But he's not going to just go toe to toe with them. And what ends up happening on April 21st, 1836, uh, Santa Anna splits up his army. And this is where Sam Houston goes, okay, this is now we got to attack. And that's what they do at the Battle of San Jacinto. I killed that name, I'm sorry. Okay. And the thing is, Santa Anna gets beat up quick. Okay. And he tries to hide amongst his men because he thinks he's going to get hanged. But Houston doesn't hang him. Basically tells him, I want you to sign this treaty saying that Texas is going to be independent. So Santa Anna signs it. And now Texas is its own country. So yeah, Texas was its own country. That's why it's called the Lone Star State. Okay. All right. 1845. President Polk is sworn in as president, and he believes deeply in this thing called manifest destiny, which is the United States should own the land between the shining sea. So from the Atlantic to the Pacific, the United States should own all that land. But here's the problem: Mexico owns California, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, parts of Oregon. So they own quite a bit of land. So they're in their way. Now, the problem is, too, there's a dispute. Let me move this camera thing. A dispute. Let me bring it a little bit down a little bit. So Mexico says the border between Mexico and the United States is the Nuez River. So if you look at the map there, you see where it says Nuez underneath, right where the little box is, where you can see me. It's from there. They say that line and to the red line, that is the border. The United States says no, 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 no. The border is the Rio Grande. And if you look at the bottom where the Rio Grande is, it's the bottomest, the furthest down blue line. Sorry, that's just I don't know why I couldn't say that. And it goes all the way up until you get to that red line that goes straight up. Okay. Now, here's the thing. There's that land that's disputed. Both sides think they own it. Okay. Polk hears that Mexico sent some soldiers down at the bottom part, the lowest part where there's green area. He says that there are some soldiers there. So he sends American soldiers across the Nuez River into that territory. Now, Mexico gets word that, hey, there's American soldiers who trust cross the Nuez River and they're in this part of Mexico. So they send troops. And of course, they meet up and they fight. On April 25th, 1846, the Mexican cavalry attacks and defeats the American soldiers. Now, did they kill them all? No. They took some as prisoners. Later, they would release them. But this is the ammunition that Polk needs. And he goes to Congress asking for a declaration of war, and he's screaming at the top of his head, Mexico passed the boundary of the U.S., invading our territory and shed American blood upon American soil. Now, there were some senators who were like, yeah, yeah, he's so right. Oh, those darn Mexicans, how dare they invade our territory and this and that. Um, there was one senator who basically told the president, show me on the map where. Where exactly did these soldiers die? Where was this fight at? Show me. Polk does not want to tell him because he knows if he tells him, then he's going to be like, well, that's disputed territory. They think they own it. We think we own it. So it's, we kind of share it at the moment. So the President Polk knows he can't say that. So he doesn't answer the senator. He just ignores him and rallies to the people, goes to the newspapers, try to get people so upset that they're like, yeah, we should fight. We should fight. And that's what happens. He gets his declaration of war on May 13th, 1846. Now, that one senator, he becomes someone later on. He does a little something with his life. His name is Abraham Lincoln. And he stood toe to toe with the president. All right. So, I'll just leave the little camera thing there. So the American soldiers are pumped. They're ready to go. They're ready to fight. Yeah. So they rally up and they charge towards California, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado. Yeah, let's go. There's like no soldiers around. They go. There's some stories of like some soldiers going to little towns and be like, "Where are the Mexican soldiers?" And the people are like, "Soldiers? No, there's no soldiers here." And I'm like, "Well, there's a war going on." The people are like, "There's a war going on? Between who?" Mexico and America. Really? Huh. News to us. A lot of people didn't know because again, word travels slowly. Okay, and the thing is that territory, California, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, parts of Oregon, that's a lot of land, a lot of territory. Mexico didn't have enough soldiers to like cover all that area, put forts all around and things like that. They didn't. So when the American soldiers came through, they just basically conquered all that area. Yeah, there were little fights here and there, but nothing really big. So General Winfield Scott basically decided, you know what, we're going to take the heart of Mexico. And his plan is to attack Mexico City. So they land in Veracruz. And if you look at the little picture on the map where the camera video thing is, if you look a little bit down, you'll see it says Veracruz. Okay. Uh, Now, here's a little fun, little interesting twist in history. Two future Civil War generals, Robert E. Lee and Ulysses S. Grant, actually meet each other. Now, at the time, Robert E. Lee is a scout. He is considered the best soldier our country has ever created. Okay. Um, and he's, again, going toward Mexico City, looking at what kind of weapons they have, how many soldiers, what's the rotation, things like that, how many cannons, what's the fort, area look like. So he's taking all these notes about what he's seeing. Ulysses S. Grant is just a regular soldier, but at one point they actually meet, they like have meal together and things like that. They actually talk. Later on, this is going to play a factor in the Civil War at the very, 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 very end. Okay. Now, September 1847, U.S. troops invade Mexico City. So that warm up picture we had at the beginning, that was it. Now, as you saw in that warm up picture, they were defeating the Mexican army. They were pushing them, pushing them, pushing them. Now, some Mexican soldiers killed themselves because they didn't want to be taken prisoner by the Americans. They didn't know what the Americans were going to do to them. Even some citizens kill themselves. There's a very famous story of three teenage kids wrapping themselves in the Mexican flag and leaping off a bell tower, and they're called Los Niños Ceros. Okay, now February 2nd, 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo is signed. And once that's signed, basically Texas is annexed by the United States, meaning Texas is now not an independent nation, they're now part of the United States. And Mexico agrees to sell California, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, and parts of Oregon for $15 million. And that was then money. Okay. Now, here's the little interesting thing. If you look at the notes again, it says February 2nd, 1848. And you look at the very bottom of the notes, it says gold was discovered in California on January 24th, 1848. Meaning a week before uh, Mexico surrenders all that land, sells it to United States, gold is discovered in California at Sutter's Mill. So technically, that gold belonged to Mexico. Now, why is that important? Well, it deals with your question, which is, what do you think would have happened if Mexico had discovered all the gold that was dug up from the gold rush time? They discovered all that gold a year before the Mexican War happened. What do you think would happen? So do you think that they would have said, "Hey, you want the Rio Grande to be the river? Fine, just stay over there." Do you think they would have done that? Do you think that they would have still gotten a war, but spent that money to buy better weapons and build forts and things like that? Buy hire mercenaries, soldiers from around the world. Do you think the government would have kept it like Santa Anna? Do you think he would have kept all that money, all that gold for himself? What do you think would have happened? Do you think the United States would have invaded even more now? You know, what do you think? What do you think would have happened? So there's the writing prompt on the bottom. So once you finish this question, you're done with this lesson. So hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed it, guys. So again, I do apologize for this not being put up earlier. Okay. Um, so with that being said, you guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later. Okay.